Hey everybody, welcome to We'd Rather Be Reading. I'm Jerica.
And I'm Leah. How are you today?
I am good. We had movement today, some yoga classes, some massage, some meetings. It's been a good day. And you know what's happening?
No.
The sun is out.
What? I did notice that. I was like, what is this bright light shining into my eyes as I'm walking outside?
I know.
Yeah, no.
I thought, Leah's going to be happy today. The sun is out. Her mood will change.
It does work. It works. It's true. I am happier today.
Yay.
Yay. And we've been doing some reading. Some heavy reading, though.
Actually, heavier than I would have liked. So I did switch it up and read an incredibly light book in between to just lighten up the heaviness.
And I went for
Also
some heavy reading. No, I was given, like I said before, my husband gave me books as an advent calendar going up to Christmas, and one of the books was a romance book, which when I went to put it into Goodread as my want to read book, I realized it's book 2 in a series, and I was like, I can't start at book 2. It's a freestanding book, but it's still within the same universe kind of thing. So I decided to read the first one in the series before tackling this book I was given. And the first one was Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade, who turns out lives outside of Stockholm with her Swedish husband.
No.
Yes. So
Dave
is now stalking her on Instagram because he's like, she says there's sushi with lingonberries only in Sweden. I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right.
That sounds right.
So I've been reading that, which was an interesting read. Not my favorite. It was similar style to After, unfortunately. I'm hoping book 2, the one I was actually given, is going to be better than Spoiler Alert. Which, Spoiler Alert was a lot about fan fiction, and I learned a lot of new lingo. So much new. Had to Google half the words in that book. Except for the word round, which was used very frequently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Round bodies.
Well, round in general. It was
generally
round. It was round body, round thighs, round boobs, round belly, round and round each other. It was very frequently used, the word round.
Interesting. Yeah. It's not that nice of a word, so that is special to it was a special many book. Times in your book.
It was a very special book.
Okay.
Yes, but this was not the book we were reading for this pod.
Definitely not, because that does not sound...
It does not
It sounds like heavy as in physical form heavy, but maybe not.
It was very floofy otherwise.
Yes.
No, for the pod we read Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley.
Nice.
As she pronounced it, the narrator pronounced it at the beginning of the book. She pronounced it Angeline. I would have probably said Angeline, but...
You would have been wrong.
I would have been wrong.
Done.
I have this best argument. I read this somewhere that to end an argument with someone, if they're wrong and they won't listen to you, you're going to say, I could agree with you, but then we'd both be wrong. And it's so excellent. But I never got to use this.
You haven't used it yet?
No. I'll be throwing it out there occasionally.
Good.
I'd be like...
I will listen for it.
Yeah, you should.
Good.
You can do a little bingo sheets of stuff we're going to be saying. This book was published March 16th in 2021 by Simon & Schuster, and the audiobook is by Macmillan Audio, and we did both listen to this book.
And the audio was good.
It was very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did a really good job, because this book switches back and forth between English and native language Ojibwa. I can't say Ojibwa.
And I think, too, if I were to read this book and have to try to pronounce those things or those words in my head, I would have taken double the amount of time to read this book.
I would have probably skipped a lot of them, too. I would have just jumped to the English translation. And it was nice hearing it out loud, honestly. I really enjoyed it. It was a beautiful sounding language. And Angeline Boulley is a Chippewa author, and she has worked to improve education for Indigenous children. And this book, Firekeeper's Daughter, is her debut novel, which is amazing. Oh my God. I know. For first book, I was impressed. Yeah. And he has been named one of the top 100 young adult novels of all times by Time magazine. Mm-hmm. It was a New York Times bestseller, and it will be adapted into a miniseries by Higher Grounds, which is the Obama's production company.
So fancy.
Yes. But there are some triggers to this book.
Yep.
I wrote them down. There's murder, drugs, addiction, sexual violence, suicide, and rape.
Yeah. Lots of death.
It was a lot of dead people.
And from the last book we read, which was all death, and then this book was very much of losing people
accidentally ended up in a dead theme. Not on purpose.
Not my favorite.
No, we were like, yes, let's read this excellent book. Ugh, everyone's dying.
It makes me even more want to rant about these lists. Like, we chose these ones from the list that were of the top of 2021. The first one was the top 2021 for fantasy, and this one for YA.
Yeah. And I mean, it is an excellent book. Both of these books are excellent books. Yeah. Were they as light and fluffy as I wanted them to be?
No. But you know what else I have a little pet peeve about both of these books? I don't think they fit into either of the categories that they're put into.
Well, I mean,
you're still
I'm
stuck.
still in fantasy land here with Under the Whispering Door, but this one I can agree I don't think is a YA book.
And I have like two things to say about that. One, I don't think it's a YA book, and I find it a little hard to believe that it would be categorized as thriller also, but okay. And I would consider it to be NA book. Like, why not call it a new adult book?
Because I think NA is just not as widely used.
Okay.
And it's not quite a category the same way as young adult is.
And then it's contemporary. Like, this is about, drugs in Michigan.
Yeah, in 2004, right? Yeah. So it's about 20 years ago. So this is...
Don't even.
We can't talk about this. This is outrageous.
Stop aging.
2004 was like last year. Come on.
It was definitely last year. But it is contemporary, and I would say that it's definitely a new adult contemporary novel, or just like a fiction, like thriller or crime, something like that.
Yeah. Definitely.
You said before that you got Breaking Bad vibes.
I did.
And I also got the Making a Murderer vibes.
I don't think Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Where there's like an intricate story. Mm-hmm. You think you know who it is, and then it's somebody else, and there's a bigger plot plan behind everything. And that's how I feel this is like. And I wouldn't put either of those books in YA.
No.
Or stories.
No. I found one thing I really, really enjoyed about this book was to learn a lot about the Native American, the culture, because our main girl, Danis Fontaine, she's a half native, half white, French descent, biracial, not enrolled, Ojibwe Native American from the Ojibwe, or she lives near the Ojibwe reservation. Mm-hmm. She is 18, about to turn 19, and she plays hockey, or used to play hockey, before a shoulder injury put an end to her career. She loves science, she loves her family, her mother and her grandmother who are white, and her native family, her aunt Teddy and the twins, and her half-brother Levi.
And her dad's name is Levi.
Danis' father is dead, and he got Danis' mother pregnant when she was only 16 years old.
And he was married.
And then he cheated on her with Levi's mom, which we find out towards the end of the book he actually tricked... Levi's mom actually tricked him into...
having a baby.
Well, she tricked him into getting exceptionally drunk so she could sleep with him, so he would be caught by Danis' mom.
Okay.
She turns out not to be so great, Levi's mom.
Jealous, yeah.
Well, she's not such a great person in general, actually, Levi's mom. And so this means that Levi and Danis are half siblings, and they're also the same age, even though Levi was held back and only started school a year later just so they wouldn't be in the same year group.
Oh.
But they are the same age. Yeah. She's very close to Levi. They're really good friends. And she spends time during her day, like she's really into the culture, and she spends time with their elders at the old folks' home where they go and get food every day, get lunch. And she's very much immersed in all the traditions and the rites of her native heritage. Like, she talks about all the herbs, and they give this offering of this tobacco every time they cross the river and so on and so forth. And she does prayers every morning and stuff. And then a new kid, Jamie Johnson, joins the school and the hockey team, and he shows an interest in Danis.
Immediately.
Yeah, and Danis' brother Levi gives his blessing for this union, even though he's never done so before. He's been very protective before. But there's more to Jamie. It turns out, and we find out pretty quickly, he's an undercover federal agent investigating crystal meth with hallucinogenic properties that appears to have come from this area, from the reservation.
Yeah.
And Lily, who is Donna's best friend, she gets killed by her ex-boyfriend Travis, who is deep in a meth addiction. And when she tries to leave him for good, to say it's over for good, he kills her and then kills himself. And Donna sees all of this. And
how depressing immediately was that?
It was so harsh.
It's really hard to read, and then you just assume, okay, now she's going to be massively traumatized the whole rest of this book.
But this is kind of the thing that pushes her over the edge, and where she starts deciding to help with the investigation for Lily and to help all these other kids who are getting stuck in these addictions. Because there's a special meth coming out of this region, and they call it Meth X, and it's more addictive than regular crystal meth. And so Donis, who's really good at science, she has to go to a federal lab to learn how to cook meth, which is hilarious. There was a comment in there, I forgot to write it down, but there was like a line in this book. I was like, in order to become a federal agent, you first have to learn to cook meth or something like that. It's like, all right. And Jamie and his superior officer, Ron, who is also undercover and who's posing as Jamie's uncle, and also the new science teacher in town, they're the ones that are going to be Donis's contact people. And she is an confidential informant, a CI.
Yeah.
And it turns out that this role, the CI role that Donis will take on, was previously held by her uncle, who died tragically less than a year ago at this point, about 6 months ago. And they thought that his death was an overdose, but it turned out that it was not. Murder. It was murder. And during this investigation, Jamie and Adonis fall in love with each other. And it's back and forth a bit on this because it's unclear what's real and what's not, because he is still playing a role and Adonis doesn't even know his actual real name or how old he is or anything really about him. So she's very unclear on and not sure about what's real and what's not.
But it's good to be cautious because there was some shady shit all over the place.
Some shady shit all over the place. And then as Donis is involved in this, she's not quite using her her FBI agent friends as much as she should. She takes on a lot of the investigation on her own, where she should really involve help because she puts herself in some dangerous situation. And at one point, she is alone with one of the fathers of the goalie, and he's active in the hockey team, I think, and he rapes her. Yeah. And there's a whole thing of her becoming enrolled in the reservation in the community as well, so she gets voting rights. And this, I'm not well enough informed in the legal system of reservation and like Native Americans and how it fits in, like the belonging to the tribes or not. Yeah. But this book made it seem like if you're part of the tribe, you're enrolled, then you don't fall under the jurisdiction and the legal right system the same way. And this, if that's true, then this is absolutely ridiculous and should be changed immediately. Because there's one point at the end where they have this fire, and it's all the women who have been raped or sexually violated, and they meet and they take comfort from each other, and it's so many of them there. And it's just these crimes will never be investigated, and these men will go free. And they even have like these blanket parties they talk about, where they will take these guys and they will take the women will take justice into their own hands and basically roll these men in blankets and take them out into the woods and beat the living crap out of them or something. Which, go girls, but the legal system should have. You should not have to do this, for sure. So it's also turns out that this meth was coming from her brother. He's very much involved, and this is being unraveled, the whole scheme. And at the end, they get kidnapped, Jamie and Donis, because they want Donis to start cooking meth for them, because Travis, the guy who killed Donis' best friend Lily, was the one cooking the meth. He was the one interested in science. And it turns out that Levi and the other ones that are still there are not quite as good at this as Travis was. So they need some help. But Donis is obviously not going to do that. So she escapes and she gets help. And she even crashes a car to get help. It's very intense. It's very well written. It's thrilling and exciting and intriguing, and you just want to know what's going to happen, because everything's going to shit and she's being held captive and there's so many things happening. But at so many points where I like, wow, the police should really step in here.
Yeah.
And oh my God, why do these people have to deal with this themselves? Like, there should be someone to call at this point. Like, why are these people let free? Why do they get to keep doing this? Like, so many times during this book.
All of the information comes out also in the very end, which is very typical YA.
yeah, for sure. But I mean, it is as Donis is learning the information that is all coming out. But I mean, I was suspecting Levi quite early on. And the hockey pucks, I picked up on that too. I'm like, that's going to be where the drugs are. It wasn't really that difficult to figure out. I thought, though, that the guy who raped her, call me Grant, whatever his name is, I thought he was more involved, and that the coach wasn't as involved as he was. That one I didn't really pick up on. And I think obviously that Donis and Jamie will probably end up together sometime in the end, because he was still writing to her. So I think this is going to happen. But it was so well crafted and well written, and I didn't really see Levi's mom being a part of this. Like, that was quite a twist that I didn't really see coming. But the rest, and the fact that Stormy wasn't talking, that he would just be quiet and he wouldn't say anything and he would end up in jail for it. Like, there's so many times during this where I just wanted to shake people, but I think it was very real, the reactions to, like, Donis, when she gets raped, her first reaction is to not say anything. Yeah. And she warns the other girl who's at risk for this. That's all she does. She warns the other girl to never be alone with this person. And then she thinks of telling Jamie, but in her head she already goes to, why didn't you do more to protect yourself? Why did you go with him in the first place? All of these blames that as women we should never put on each other, on ourselves if we're put in these situations, or on each other at all, because at the end of the day, it should not matter what you as a woman or a girl are doing. Yeah. Because the choice to rape is always with the rapist. They can always choose not to fucking rape, and nothing you would have done would have changed it. I mean, but
she doesn't really handle it that well.
She handles nothing. No. She deals with none of her trauma, and I think this is going to come back and bite her later. But at this point,
it is how she develops as her coping person.
So I had one slight continuity issue.
No.
Yeah, I was surprised. I didn't think I would have any. But it's really at the end. So Donis and Jamie get kidnapped, both of them, at the end, at separate occasions, but they get taken to this trailer that's hidden in a cave where there's no cell signal or anything. Yeah. And when they're there, Mike, who's the goalie, and Levi, Donis' brother, comes, and they're there to bring Donis to the lab or something to get her to cook meth. Yeah. So Mike gives Levi 2 hours to get Donis to the lab and then get back before he will hurt Jamie. That's what they say. Okay. And there's no way to contact them by phone or anything like that. Like, he cannot be contacted while he's there with Jamie. Right. And then there's a bunch of things that happens. But then there's the whole thing on the ferry where all the elders, which was my favorite part, where all the elders jump in to box Levi in so that Donis can escape. This was my absolute favorite and best. And then there's the whole crash with Coach Bobby, and they never even make it to where they're taking Donis. And then when they rush back, it's much too late. It's way outside this 2-hour thing. And Jamie said that the time had run out and he'd been left with no heat and no food and no water before Stormy shows up and cuts him free. So this is like, why would they give only 2 hours for Levi to take Donis where they need to go if there wasn't nearly enough time for them to even get there and absolutely not enough time for them to get back? Like this...
The timing was unnecessary, you mean?
No, but like why the 2 hours if it's impossible for him to actually complete it? Like, then is it just for a reason to hurt Jamie? Or is it like, I don't know. It seemed silly to say like, if you're not back in 2 hours, this will happen. But there's no way you can be back in 2 hours. Like, and this was my only little thing that I had.
I had a thought about the cover, and I'm glad we are going to talk about it after we talked about the book, because it'll make more sense now. It's a gorgeous cover.
Yes.
And it's a butterfly, and each wing is a girl's face.
Yep.
And there's fire on the bottom, and there's some tribal things happening all over the rest of the cover, and it is vibrant with blues and reds and oranges. And when you look at this book, what do you think that this book is about?
What do I think? I don't know.
You don't know?
I would not think it was about what it was about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's exactly my thought. When I saw this cover and we were like, oh, of course, we're going to read this YA. My brain went straight to fantasy because it is very fantastical cover. And it looks like these two girls maybe are even at war with each other. And there's going to be some fairy something because there's wings.
Yeah.
Because there's really no other significance of butterfly or wings throughout the book whatsoever.
No.
And like this, of course, all of the other tribal things, like the sun and the birds and stuff, might have significance within and because of their tribe, but otherwise not because of anything that's happening in the book. So I think when you look at this cover, you're going to not have any idea what you're getting into in the book.
No, for sure. I did not think at all that this book was going to be about what it was about. Like, I was very surprised. Like, I don't even think I read the little summary. I think I read Firekeeper and I was like, oh, this is going to be fantasy something. And then I started listening and I'm like, what is going on?
Why is there meth in my fantasy book?
Why are people dying? I don't understand what's happening.
I know. Murder, suicide.
It's also, the tagline is keep the secret, live the lie, earn your truth. And even that is not really...
No, that's deceptive too.
Yeah.
It doesn't have anything to do with...
But I mean, it does in a way. Like But... I don't know. Regardless, however surprising the content of this book was, it was an excellent book.
Yes, and the cover is gorgeous.
Yes.
They just don't fit with each other.
And I think this will make a very good miniseries too.
Yeah, sure,
I think this will be very visually very, very good.
Yeah.
And there's so much that happens in it. And I think we complain sometimes about, or a lot of the time, about people not dealing with the trauma and dismissing rape too quickly. But we do all deal with trauma in our own ways. Sure. And I think they talk a little bit about it in this book. Native Americans have generational trauma as well. And this, I think, may change the way you deal with trauma this way as well, and the fact that it appeared in this book to be so widespread sexual violence and that it doesn't get dealt with, and
there's for sure truth behind all of that also.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can just look at Canadian history, like the missing and murdered indigenous children, women is ridiculous. I mean, come on, this should be dealt with like yesterday.
Yeah, time ago.
And it should not be okay that no one investigates or cares that you go missing just because you're from an indigenous tribe. Like
everyone should have the same rights throughout the entire country.
Of course, and I mean, this is really. Nothing else to say about that, really. I mean, that's full stop. Like, of course, you should be safe and not be subjected to sexual violence regardless of who you are.
Yeah.
Or where you're from. And on this, I was actually reading last week as well. I was reading the second book, or the other book by T.J. Klune, who was the author we read last week, Under the Whispering Door. I read his other book, The House in the Cerulean Sea, which is based loosely on this 60s scoop, which is where they took Indigenous children away from families in Canada and placed them in orphanages and residential schools, which we all know is a horrible fucking practice. And those graves of all these children that they just keep on finding, like, not good. Nothing fucking good came from this. And the twist he did in that story, in that book, is that these are not Indigenous people in this book. It's kids with supernatural abilities being taken from. And it's really nicely done. Honestly, I like it a lot. And it shows the issues with the system, as well as... I mean, I read one review that said that it's like saying something good could come out of this. And I understand what that person is saying, because I don't think... we should say, there were surely some success stories in the stealing of Indigenous children. No, of course, no. That's not the story we should be telling. Right. But basing a book and making it a fantastical book about an event and having like the start of it and then making your own thing, I think that's a different story. And it is an excellent book. Like, so good. So good. We could have played so many games of Guess That Mythical Creature. So many.
I miss that. Can we do something fun for our next book?
Please.
Because we have been so Debbie Downer.
Yes.
With
We're going to be reading only light and fluffy going forward. No. Our next book is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine, which was a book that was actually recommended to me by a coworker of mine.
Cool.
Who said, it's the best book I read all year.
Yeah, nice.
And I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. It's by Gail Honeyman, and I actually gave this book to my mother. Before even reading it myself, I gave it to my mother for Christmas. So she read it before me, and she really enjoyed it. So
okay, cool.
Very excited about this.
Yay.
Not sure if it will be light and fluffy, but after Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine, we will totally go to light and fluffy.
I mean, it's light and fluffy in the way of how she is and how her character narrates the book and things like that, but maybe not exact content.
No.
But it is a lot less murder.
A lot less murder. Maybe. Who knows? We'll see. We'll talk about it next week. Until then... happy reading.
Happy reading, everyone.
Bye.
See you later.
We'd Rather Be Reading is an original podcast by Jerika Seron and Leah Sanfö. The music for The Penguins, written and performed by David Allred from the album The Transition, courtesy of Erased Tapes. Please check him out on Spotify and check us out on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram at We'd Rather Be Reading and on Twitter at We'd Rather Read. You can also email us at we'dratherbereadingthepod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.